even though their salary on paper says 180,000. Come, we know they're making more than 180,000
Course.
because of political action committees, lobbyists, and this is not just U.S. It's in Canada as well. There's perks, there's benefits, there's a lot of these people they're incorporated just like me. So though they're the individual, they have a corporation that is owned by them, and so they can just get people to just donate to their corporation and not to them,
Yep.
right? So there's so many loopholes. This is why the rich get richer.
My,
Hey guys, welcome to another Nerdy Mondays. US has joined this war with Israel and Iran, and or maybe not joined, I don't know. It's a little conflicting right now. Debatable whether it was justified or not. We're not going to get into that. But we thought we would just kind of leverage this situation and just kind of talk about it from more from a tech perspective. So, maybe talk about what stocks you might want to try to invest in. So, Jai, you do investments, right? You do stocks and all that good stuff?
yeah, I have some stocks. And to your point, there's always uncertainty when there's wars or rumors of wars and stuff going on. So one of the things that Kevin had brought up was that we talk about, how it impacts us in terms of investments. And for me, it's just highlighting those areas. And I guess we'll go through that as we go along. But don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny? A lot of times people think, or at least this is what I used to think, when times of war, the whole market might crash. But it's actually the opposite. It's more sectorial changes. So sectors of the market adjust and change. If you're thinking of investing and you're just kind of getting into it, don't let the current market or like the current situation of what's happening over there stop you from investing. Do what you got to do. Keep investing. The markets are not going to collapse. They typically don't. I think the tariffs probably had more of effect on the market than the wars. Now, sadly, it's probably because we have so many wars, people are now just kind of accustomed to it and it's just kind of, like numb. We have so many wars going on. You got the Ukraine, we had the Iraqi war for so many years. And yeah, so I think it's just people are just kind of numb to it. But that's one thing that's really a kind of misnomer. People think that the market will pretty much crash. It usually doesn't. It's more sectorial changes, and you can leverage that. So I asked Perplexity, what are some top stocks to potentially invest in?
I can read it, but I don't know if people who are watching would be able to read it. If you can make it a little bit bigger, that would be helpful.
Sure, sure.
There you go. That's it. Oh wow.
Too big?
This is fine. This is excellent. Like this
Perfect. So what I did was I just, given the current threat of war between Iran and Israel, did I spell Israel right? I don't remember. And the fact
Israel.
US,
It's real. It's real. Coronavirus. It's real.
the learning language model knows my stupidity, so it's all good.
Nah, you're good.
Just bomb Iran. What stock should I be looking at as opportunities to invest?
Yeah.
Between Israel and US, investors should focus on sectors. So, like I said, sectorial changes as opposed to the broad market crashing that historically benefit from geopolitical instability. And so here's some. So Lockheed Martin,
Hmm.
Raytheon. So RTX is Raytheon Corp. And within energy, it says Chevron. And then obviously, I think, Jai, you mentioned this as well at some point in a previous podcast, gold.
Yep.
Definitely want to invest in gold, and then yes, of course, oil is definitely something that you want to invest in.
Surprised you didn't bring anything about tech
And
stocks, which is kind of surprising.
I'm not surprised with that.
Mm.
I'm not surprised with tech stocks. It's simply because it's there, but in times of like, let's say, let's be honest, like an apocalypse or something, like, do you really care about IBM? You know what I mean?
No, but
I'm just being
no, you're
honest,
right. You're
right?
right.
Like,
But I think all these stocks would. I mean, like apocalypse, that would be everything pretty much be wiped out. But I'm thinking because
yeah,
of technology, like a
yeah.
lot of these warfares use technology. but I'm thinking that these companies as well have an element of tech in their business model because most of these bombers use technology, radar detection, those types of the GPS, those are tech, right? But that's why I was thinking tech sector, but I could be,
Hmm.
it's different. As long as
Yeah.
there's sectors of them that utilize some of these technologies like AI, I guess maybe that's why the entire tech. Because when we think about tech, we're thinking, like the IBMs, the Apples,
Hmm.
Teslas, but you know,
Yeah. I would imagine if there was gonna be tech, maybe at the chip level. So like Raytheon,
they do
they
chip.
do the guidance systems for,
Okay,
yeah. Well, I think they develop the hardware, but I think with the hardware you
you
need
need software.
the
Yeah,
physical the CPUs and the processors and the resistor. You know what I mean?
yeah.
All that stuff, all the hardware, and so like TSM, semiconductor. I think it's Taiwan Semiconductor. Those types of things, maybe because you need those chips and stuff like that. Maybe not NVIDIA type chips. Those are
Those are
more for high
yeah,
end
yeah.
stuff. But for like guidance systems, it'd be like, those, so you're making a good point. I wouldn't be surprised. I think maybe if you think of it from a chunk perspective, like a piece of the
hmm
pie, these are the big pieces of the pie,
Yeah,
right? These four major areas, and then probably, those chips and those semiconductors that are used within this hardware, these very specific pieces of equipment, it's a small piece. And so, yeah, there's lots of money to be made, but probably because it's such a small share, or the market cap isn't that great, you have to be a real big player to actually see, value in investing in it, right?
but would you say
Versus these
yeah?
are,
But would you say this is
go on.
more of a long-term play or short-term play for these investments that you're asking viewers to look into? Like, say for instance, you have
Yeah.
5 grand. Is this something you buy and hold for, I don't know, the duration of this war, or do you just buy and if it goes up by $2 and just sell and get your money? Depending on how many
Yeah.
you buy.
I think for gold, definitely for gold, that's definitely something you want to put into your, if you have like an RS, if you have a retirement portfolio, investment portfolio, I think definitely gold. I think though with the other ones like, Lockheed Martin, things like that, those are more things where you could, because these are institutional companies. They've been
Been around for a while.
there's only like three or four companies that do any guidance systems for all the weapons in all the world. So whether you're on the opposing side, whether you're on the other side, the defense side, they're all using the same technology. So like for example, a Raytheon. So I wouldn't say, just dump it as soon as the war is over, but I wouldn't want to tell you to keep it in perpetuity because it is one of those, like I said, it's a sector
Just yeah.
type thing. So it'll go up, it'll go down. Once war settles down, the value, the price of it might go down a little
Mhm.
bit, so but gold is one of those
Yeah,
things where it's kind of stable, right? It's not stable, but gold is that thing where anytime there's any type of change. So if oil goes down, gold will go up. Well, you know what I mean?
interesting. We talk about these wars, and when things happen, I always ask the question, or people should ask the question, who stands to gain? And he
Hmm.
talked about the fact that there's mainly 3 or 4 companies that produce or are involved with these guiding systems. If there is a war, their stocks go up. Who are the people that stand to gain when these stocks go up? And are these the same people that are pushing for the wars to happen? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. But I mean, that's why I said maybe digression here, but these are some of the things that one needs to look at because it plays into your psyche. And we've talked about this a lot about signal versus noise. So there's going to be a lot
Hmm.
of noise around the wars that's going on, but where's the money going? You got to follow the money. You as an individual, you're not necessarily a part of the war because, I mean, let's face it, we live in Canada. It doesn't impact the everyday person, at least not yet. So do you go and
Hmm.
get into that rabbit hole of trying to figure out who's winning the war, who's the better side, who's the aggressor, who's good, who's bad? Or do you spend that time to understand who the role players are, why they're fighting this war? Maybe it's about making the bag and how can you tap into it? I guess these are some questions that you need to ask yourself as an individual when these things happen. I just wanted to throw that out there before we go ahead.
Yeah, no, and you're definitely saying some stuff that is definitely a problem with our current system because you're right. Like Trump knows what he's going to say. And so, what about the people around him that know what he's going to say before he tweets it? What are they doing? Right? So, if they know that Trump is going to say something about the oil industry, okay, I know he's going to say something about the oil industry, and I know that this is going to be negatively impacting. It's not going to be favorable. So, I can now, short this stock. I can now take advantage of this or tell my friend, that's 5 hours ahead of me when another. And so this is the
Yeah.
problem, right? Insider trading and this type of stuff is a real
Yeah.
problem. I guess I look at it like this, Jai. You are so right, but this is the current system we live in. We all know politicians are taking advantage of this. We all know politicians, even though their salary on paper says 180,000. Come, we know they're making more than 180,000
Course.
because of political action committees, lobbyists, and this is not just U.S. It's in Canada as well. There's perks, there's benefits, there's a lot of these people they're incorporated just like me. So though they're the individual, they have a corporation that is owned by them, and so they can just get people to just donate to their corporation and not to them.
Yeah.
Right? So there's so many loopholes. This is why the rich get richer, and then as they get richer, they just kind of their pockets are a little bit more loose because they got so much money. Okay, whatever. Here, take some change. You know what I mean? Because they got they're bleeding
Yeah.
money, so they're not starving at all. So it's the trickle down effect, and then they just drop pittance to us. Unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. If you look at these stocks, the real players they know what's
Yep.
happening. They have the
They have the
insight,
inside. Yeah. Of
but all we can do as the layman's is really just kind of look at the trends.
course.
But for us, I think what we need to realize is it's high time we stop standing on the sidelines. We need to stop taking the stance where, oh, this is a rich man's game and I'm not going to play. The point is, if you have the money, just buy a couple of shares. We can't just sit on the sidelines anymore. It's not an
Yep.
option. And so this trickle down effect sucks, but it's the current system we have.
These are the people you need to look at. These are the companies you need to look at. So how do you take advantage of it? And I think that's part of what we'll talk about today. So good on you. Thanks, Kevin, for bringing this topic up because as we talk about it, I get more insight as to some of the things that I need to do for myself as well. And I hope the viewers, those of you who are watching, to like and subscribe and follow us so that you could, you know, get an idea on what we're talking about.
Exactly. Just to add to what you're saying, it's to kind of give awareness. We want to give you guys awareness and also not look at it as something to fear. This is a big man's game, or it's portrayed as a big man's game, but the great thing about a publicly traded company, they have shares. So yes, you're gonna your dividend will be next to nothing, but at least it's better than nothing, right? It's next to nothing, but it's
Better than
better than
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hum and ho and sit on the sidelines, but you got to just at one point just take a dive, get into it. We are in a capitalist world. Not saying to be of this world. You don't need to be of this world, but at the end of the day, you can live in
Yeah,
this
you need
world.
to. I'm not too up to speed or abreast of who's doing what or who's who, but fact of the matter is there's three players in this war. There's Iran, there's the US, and then there's Israel. My understanding about
So,
sorry, go ahead.
so correction. Technically, it's Iran and Israel.
Yes, but that's why I said there's
Technically.
three players, right? Because technically, yes, it's Iran and
Well,
Israel,
U.S. wouldn't call themselves, yeah, U.S., but
but they
U.S. is
bombed.
official.
They bombed.
I
They
know, they
bombed
wouldn't call
Iran. Yeah.
themselves I know, they wouldn't call themselves a player. I almost think they would call themselves a proxy,
Okay, fair enough.
right? It was a
Let's just say
proxy.
they're a proxy. The only reason why I think they've been removed as a proxy is because in retaliation, Iran attacked their base in Qatar. So
The
the
U.S.
U.S.
base.
base in Qatar, which was earlier today.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's just say Iran and Israel are. Israel believes Iran is making. They're at a capacity where they can create an atomic bomb because their nuclear uranium capacity is at I think 60%, and I think the agreed
Mm.
upon percentage should be 3%. The rate that you will have enough to make a nuclear bomb is I think 70% or something, and Iran's at 60%, which is this whole thing you're hearing about them. They're a year or 3 months or 3 days away, whatever the case may be. At least that's how I understand it. Iran is saying no, but they haven't also been truthful about participating in the inspectors coming to view their nuclear program or uranium programs. So Israel's saying they're there,
Mm.
Iran is saying they're not. Who you whose side you're on, I don't know. America seems to be on Israel's side. They bombed their nuclear facilities, and that's where we are today. At least that's how I understand it. So I don't know if you have more
Yeah,
insight into
and
it, but
yeah, no, and I think a good way to know where you're at is to know where you came from. So one thing to highlight is Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the prime minister
mhm.
or the current, basically the head of the current administration in Israel for the last 20 years, has been saying that Iran has nuclear missiles and has nuclear capability. So that's one thing to just give a little context. Israel has been saying this about Iran for the last 20 something years, right? So it's not like as if they're saying, "Oh, they're only at 3% and they shouldn't have any percent." It was always since the last 20 years, they're at 60%. They're at 60%. They're at 60, you know what I
Yep,
mean? Something like that.
yep,
So that's one thing. So I guess some people are wondering why now, because they've been complaining and saying that Iran is ready to create nuclear bombs for the last 20 years. Why all of a sudden now? So that's one thing. The other thing is you're right, there is a strong ally like US and Israel allied, definitely. I think the reason why this is escalated now, I think it has to do with the Gaza thing. This is just my theory. I think what Israel is trying to do is, and then I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of things happening, and I think the current leadership in Israel, they need to show some sort of distraction or some sort of new strength, and I think this is part and parcel of it, to be honest with you. I think it's also potential regime change. One other thing that's important to know is Iran for the last 30 years as well, they have been US has sort of interfered with their current leadership for the last 30 years as well. So just one thing. So if you remember with Saddam Hussein, what they did was there was a coup and then the government was overthrown and then they had Saddam Hussein as their kind of puppet, right? And then years later, Saddam Hussein just basically turned on US and then US just kind of
yeah.
called him the
It,
enemy
it,
of the
it
state in a sense, right?
it's a lot of things because just to point out,
Yeah.
Netanyahu has been in power since the early 90s or late 90s, but he hasn't been in power that
Mm-hmm.
long. It's been spurts. So he was in power from I think three years and then 12 year stint, and then now he's so this is like a fifth or sixth term for him because in Israel, basically, if you belong head of the party, I think it's like a parliamentary system like Canada. You're the head of the party, so he's been the head of the party. He's been the prime minister for a while. He's been booted out and then back,
Mm-hmm.
so he's been back and forth. So he's the current prime minister, but overall, the span has been 20 years plus. The other thing is that Iran because there was that Iran Iraq war. I don't know if you guys remember. This was back in the day. I think they fought from 81 to like 89 or something like that. And for the better part of
Mm-hmm.
it, Israel actually was supporting Iran during that war, at least based on my knowledge and findings and readings. And you can fact check me, guys, if I'm wrong on this one. But sort of for a period of time, they were allies during that war. So it's kind of weird that all of this is unfolding now because the way it's working is where that whole conflict started to happen. I'm not sure how it started or where it started and when it started because, all of a sudden Iran's now chanting death to Israel, death to America. And there's a lot of evidence that Iran has been a sponsor of many of the terrorist activities in the Middle East and across the world. They seem to be, behind most of these acts. They support Hamas, they support the Hezbollah, they support a lot of these quote unquote organizations that are labeled terrorist organizations. So they, I mean, they're no saints in all of this, but there's a lot of there's two sides to every story, right? So having said that, how do we benefit as individuals in terms of,
Yeah,
where we look at
yeah.
stocks?
And ultimately, what I was just gonna say was it's just a regime. There's been regime changes in
Yeah.
Iran, and I think this is part and parcel of one of the challenges.
Hmm.
And the reason why I brought up Iraq is because that was a very popular or very well-known regime change that destabilized Middle East. And to your point, that alliance was 1979, which
Okay.
was a really, really long
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that was years ago. And that alliance stopped after 1979 with the new regime change when the Ayatollah Khomeini declared Israel as
As
an
an
enemy
enemy, yeah. But
state,
it's
right?
important to note
So,
though, because here's the thing, right? If that's the issue, there's a regime change, and Ayatollah is, de facto, I mean, not de facto, but he's the head of the Iranian government, and there's animosity. What has really transpired to bring US into the equation is my question, right? So I know you said that there's a proxy, but there's people online, Trump supporters, like, why is America going into this war? What is the quote
yeah.
unquote negative or benefits or whichever case may be or how whichever side of the fence you stand? Why is America just going into this war? What are the benefits? What are the negatives? Like, these are the questions that people are asking.
So, yeah. And so we're touching on to the Thought Friday, but we'll just kind of give you a little teaser potentially of what we might talk about. But any war is always about materials. Let's be honest. It's always about some sort of resource. I've never seen a war where it's just completely just because the people. No, it's resources,
Or women,
right? Middle East, it was oil.
the Trojan War.
What they want the
No, the
women?
Trojan War was because of a woman, Helen of Troy. But anyway, sorry, I'm
Oh
just being
yeah.
funny. Don't mind me.
That was years
Don't
ago.
mind me. Yeah.
Okay, let me clarify. Every modern war
Yes.
in the 20th century
Yes.
has been about resources.
Yes.
It's the only thing it's all about resources, to be honest with you. And controlling and having and getting in control of those resources. Think about it. Why would you need a regime change? Why? Right? If it's
That's
a,
true.
anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. But my point, what I'm trying to say is it just comes down to resources. And so I think with Iran, there's a number of resources. I don't know all of them, but even just the port, I think there's a specific unique port that a lot of ships have to go through, right? Having control of that port would be great. You know what I mean? As a simple example. So it usually comes down to that. There's another one I was gonna bring up. I
Is it the
forgot.
oil? They're all religious.
Religious.
Okay.
There's the religious component. So part of the reason why the regime the new Ayatollah made Israel enemy of the state was because they started becoming, anti-Zionists. And so they started, aligning with Palestinian views and perspectives and Hezbollah, as you mentioned, Hamas. And so that's really what happened. So a lot of times, I would say every time, it's either relating to religious or it is resources. That's it. Every modern war has been about either religious or resources. So it's just like in Ukraine, they have a lot of rich
Oh
minerals, a
yeah.
lot of rare earth
A lot of the
minerals, right?
fertilizer the world uses is Ukraine. Yeah.
Thank you. So really, it's really about liberating people. Most likely not. And then of course there's religious. Religious is really
Yeah, that's a big
is a
one.
big thing. I think here's where it gets a little tricky. And this is a Thought Friday thing, but the Bible teaches us we need to protect Israel. But is the Bible talking about Israel the state or Israel the people? And I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we as believers are challenged with. And I think this is where a lot of people are conflicted. This is where the debate gets really, really tricky because Israel, we know, is very important in Christianity. But the question is it is it really the Israel government?
Modern day
Is
Israel
that what we're
versus biblical
protecting?
Israel. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
exactly,
how do you?
But
It's funny to I know.
I
Yeah, yeah.
digress.
Let me just say one last thing before we go into you showing the investment side of things. It's important to know that even within that region, there's a lot of different religions, especially in Iran. Iranians have, there's Christian, there's Muslim, there's Jews, there's other religious sects within that Iran, even though it's an Islamic state. I think it's important to
Hmm.
point out that there's a lot of religions that coexist within that region. Like, um, I don't know, I don't know why the government is like that. Most of the Persians I know are peaceful, loving people. They majority of them don't seem to like their government, though. I would say that, but I don't think it's wars for me is just not a good thing. I just hope that there's negotiations and some peaceful talks because it's not fair to. I don't like it when people bombing each other. Like it's people die, children. I just hope it stops and there's some kind of diplomacy takes place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think war is definitely, I mean, it's obviously a moneymaker for certain industries and sectors, which is unfortunate. But yeah, but as long as people exist on Earth, it's gonna
It
always
always
happen.
happen.
It's
Yeah,
just,
of
it's sad. But I last real quick, really sorry, I just want to bring it up. I want to take an opportunity.
course.
There is the Democratic Republic of Congo, the M23 rebellion that's happening right now as well. It just doesn't get any type of airtime.
Attraction. I
And
wonder
that's
why.
happening right now. Yeah, there's a Sudanese civil war right now that's been happening since 2023. So, just want to highlight. I know we don't have a lot of followers, but at the end of the day, anybody can look this stuff up. The world is not just it's not just about Iran and Ukraine. There's other wars happening. So, these happen to be in Sudan, one in the Republic of Congo, and these are just as important. These are lives being destroyed. Another thing too is I think there was a bombing in Iran that killed like 200 people. Like sometimes it's crazy how we focus on certain war or certain area and 30 people or 10 people were injured. Like really there's people like 200s that are dying, like dying, not injured, dead. So just wanted to highlight that. But I think we have said enough. This stuff is more related to a Thought Friday, so let's get back into the nerdy stuff, all right? Do you agree?
Oh no, I agree
Jai?
completely. I think you mentioned one thing. It's all about wars are about resources. So let's talk about the resource part. How can we tap into not necessarily the pain of what people are going through, but the investment side of things in terms of what we as individuals that are helpless to those people going through those things, maybe how we can help ourselves and maybe to help them as well. Because I know there's a lot of people who give to children's societies across the globe where in war-torn zones. So this is where you can start, make some profit off of your investments. So I think Kevin, you're just going to pull up a few stocks that we can look at, right? That people can, at least can,
Yeah, but yes, yes, but real quickly, I just did a quick. I said, what resource does Iran have?
Oh,
And
it's
check this
yeah,
out.
it's
Look at
oil and natural
this.
gas for sure. They're one of the richest producers of,
Well, second
yeah,
largest.
they're one of the richest. Yeah,
Second
Iran is,
largest. Like,
yeah,
isn't that
it's
convenient?
huge when it comes to natural gas and oil. Iran is huge. The reason why they haven't been
Second
doing well is
largest.
because of the sanctions. There's a lot of sanctions in Iran, so they can't sell or to other there's countries they can't sell their oil to, and that's majority of the countries, and their natural gas because of the sanctions that are imposed on those people.
Hmm.
If the sanctions weren't there, it's a rich mineral resource rich country, very very rich, but if you have all the resources and you can't sell it, who does it benefit? It doesn't benefit any of the citizens are not gonna. And then, of course, there's corruption. So the little that they can sell or trade off, it's only going to the few at the top. So that's another bit of it. So
Hmm.
it's like, you know, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's
And
it's yeah.
and I
Go ahead.
and I want to make it clear, I'm not for Iran. I'm not against Iran. I'm just
No,
stating
no,
the
same here.
facts.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's
I
that's
just
both of us.
uh,
I'm not for or against them. I don't like
yeah.
wars. Canada's always been on neutral side, and I think that's where we still stand.
Hmm.
From that perspective, we just don't want. For me, it's all about the kids, man. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I just wanted to pull that out, just call that
I
out, and
water. Did you
dovetailing
see water there as one of their resources? That's interesting because where they are,
water.
yeah, as one of the resources. When you look at the table, resource type. Water
Well, it
scarce,
says
but
scarce,
yeah, but
but
that's what I'm
key
saying.
rivers
That's
in
what I'm
one of those
saying.
regions.
That's interesting because in that region, there's a lot of fight for who has access. Because you were talking about the pathways to ships and stuff, right? Who has
Yeah, the
access,
shipping
shipping
lanes.
lines and all this? So who has access to the water? So when you look at the Houthis, like the Yemenis, I think they have access to one of those lines there. So that's why there's a resource. When you talk about resource, there's something there to look at. These are things you need to explore.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting. It is. Do your
Yeah,
research. Don't just focus on the noise. Check out the signals.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Yeah, yeah. So it's definitely an interesting thing, but like I said, there's a lot of other wars
Oh, they have
happening.
gypsum,
If you're I
molybdenum,
if you're
antimony, sulfur. I remember this on the
Yeah.
periodic table and stuff. Lead, uranium, copper, zinc. Wow, copper is
Hmm.
huge. Electrical lines. Those are they're not cheap. Lead.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Exactly.
gold.
Exactly.
Wow. Sorry, go ahead, Sharon. I'm just.
Okay. Yeah, it's all good. If you're concerned about the Iran war and the Israeli war, be just as concerned with the Sudanese war and the Congo War as well. I just really urge you to just do a little research. We all live on this earth, so be aware just as much as those. Don't let the news be your only outlet. You can do your own news. You can do your not your own news, but you can do your own
Research, yeah, your
research to
research for
find
sure.
these things out,
Yeah,
right? Don't just rely on the CNN and the Fox News, okay? They have an agenda, and so that agenda does not always align with what the world needs, okay? So, anyways, back to more nerdy type stuff. So, let's just go into Wealthsimple and let's just take a look at some of these stocks. So, I'm just going to log into mine. Three stocks I'm going to look at. And again, I know, Jai, I know you have a lot more money than me, so just don't laugh at me. Ironically, just real quickly, ironically, there's a lot more in here, but what I did was I took that money out and I put it into what's it called? Segregated funds.
smart.
Sorry, what'd you
I
say?
said smart, smart.
Yeah, I took it out of segregated funds. So I took about 100 and I think almost 200,000. I think it took 200,000 out of this account. Anyways, so this is Wealthsimple. If you guys aren't familiar with it, Wealthsimple is a really great way to invest or start investing. It is limiting, but it's not too bad. It's simple to use, but it does have its limitations, specifically when it comes to cryptocurrency. Now, with that said, they are changing things a lot. So, they are like a couple of years ago, they didn't have fractional buys. You couldn't buy fractional stocks. Now you can. You can staking. So I can now stake my Ethereum. I think that's what I was saying. So
Steak.
I don't know if you can stake Bitcoin, but you can stake Ethereum. Before you couldn't stake anything, but now you can stake Ethereum. I don't think you can stake Bitcoin, but if you had Bitcoin on another platform like Coinbase, you could do staking there and everything. But other than that, this is Wealthsimple. I'm not gonna really do a tutorial on it, but to look at stocks, you could just type in the name. So we'll start with Raytheon. No, that's not it. What is it? RAE?
Ethereum or Lithium? RI? Is it
No,
RA
I'm
or
looking for I'm looking for Raytheon.
Raytheon? Is it RATH?
RTX. Let's try that.
Yeah, it's RTX.
Okay, is it this one? It looks like it should RTX should be this
Yeah.
one. NYC, Nasdaq, or New York Stock Exchange. That's what it's on. Yeah, New York Stock Exchange. Okay, so let's try this. I think that's a symbol. Yeah. So this is Raytheon. So it is down, but again, one of the things that you might want to consider is, just buying this. You can look at the 3 month or look at the 5 year moving average. So it goes up and down. So ideally, you'd like to get at 66, but that was, years ago, 2020. But as you can see overall, it's just gone up, right? It has its ebbs and flows, but it's pretty much gone up. And in the last couple of, look at that, let's see. So since 2020, I would say ever since 2023, it's been breaking in like a very bullish run. If you guys don't know a bull, think of a bull's horns. They go up.
They go
So
up.
that's when you say bullish, it means that's a going up. And bearish, a bear claws down. That's a trending down. Like that's a down market. So just a little tidbit, if you ever hear someone saying a bearish market, just means that the trend is going down.
Blood on the
Bullish
streets.
market, it means it's going up.
That's
I
it.
guess, yeah. So yeah, ever since 2023 has been pretty bullish. So definitely something to potentially just purchase or just buy. And again, like we were saying before, yes, buying a house is very expensive, but you buy like a couple of stocks of this, you're looking at $300, $400. Again, is it gonna make you a lot of crazy amount of, no, not really. But again, you got to think of it from a long-term perspective. Think of it from a long-term perspective. If you're into saying potentially a short-term thing, then look at it like a kind of quick investment. Like we said, like I can't really say to keep Raytheon forever. Gold, I think keep forever, not necessarily Raytheon. But let's say, for example, you're not thinking of keeping it in a long-term fashion. But what you might want to do is you might want to just kind of look for and wait for a potential dip. One thing you can do is look at the average. There's models that you can do to pretty much you take a line, put a line through the 3 or 4 peaks of past year's performance, and then you just do a straight line and you try to see the average. You try to get and see whether it can get down to that price. What you could do is you can do a limit purchase. What it means is you set how much you want to buy it at. So say 120, and then you could do that, and then you can say how many shares, 4 shares, and then basically it'll say this is how much it's going to cost you, $480 US, and then you click next. So, and then you also obviously have to choose which account you're going to use it from. One thing I do suggest, if you are new to all this, use a TFSA. We're in Canada. Use a tax-free savings account. What happens, because if you do use that, you can save yourself on potential taxes. Because what happens is when you do if you when you buy stocks, it's great, but when you sell stocks, you get taxed. But if it's a tax-free savings account, you can kind of hedge those tax implications. Versus if you just do a regular checking account, you're going to get probably killed with a lot of tax potential, especially if you're buying and selling, things like that.
Mhm.
Anyways, so you could do a limit buy. What this basically means is that it will not buy it until the price hits this price. So once this number hits 120, it'll buy 4 shares. You can set it to how long this will expire for. I guess market hours, and you can set it to for up to 90 days. So what this will do is it'll keep this on alert. It'll watch this stock for at least 3 months, and then if this price ever hits 120, boom, it just starts buying these stocks. It'll just buy it for you automatically. You could do that. Again, a really great way if you're worried about getting into the market and it's kind of stupid, but you're like, I don't want to spend this money. Put it at a really low number, right? Put it at something that you don't think it'll ever hit. It's kind of funny, right? You can have fun with this. To put at, I mean, obviously, you want to try to make money, but let's say you put it at 120, you leave it there, and then all of a sudden it hits 120. Yeah, now you just spent that money, but You bought at a really, really great price.
Hmm.
You didn't have to watch it. You didn't have to worry about it. You didn't have to think about it. It just did it for you automatically. So that's one of the cool things with Wealthsimple. I think you can do that with other things too, like Quest Trade and stuff like that, or iTrade, things like that. And then you have options. You can do options. I'm not too versed in options, but basically, I look at it like this. Stocks are like if you have a Russian roulette table and you know how you have the individual numbers and you got to choose a number, that's stocks. You got to choose the numbers. You got to really do your research. And you can always, do like, 3, 8, and 6 together and stuff like that. That's what stocks are. And I'm not saying stocks are gambling. I'm just using this analogy. And then what options are like on the edge of the blackjack table, not blackjack, roulette table, where it's either black or white. So, sorry, black or red. So, if you don't want to actually choose a number, you can just bet on red. And so your payout is not going to be as high because it's a 50, I think it's a 50 to 1 versus, or 2 to 1 versus if you hit a number, that's like a 30 to 1. So think of options like that. It's sort of just, you're kind of not playing the full game, you're playing on the outskirts. You're just kind of hedging whether this is going to go up or down. And that's really what options are, really. Again, I'm not the best at it, so please tell me if I'm being an idiot right now. But basically, just kind of wanted to show you a stock. Let's look at another one real quickly. Jai, did you have any thoughts or concerns or?
No, I think you've said pretty much. You look at the 5 year average when you're looking at these stocks. For me, I also look at the market cap of the company.
That's true too.
That's very
Yes,
important because that's how you know whether the company is too big to fail or just trying to get up there. The average volume of
that's right.
sales is another thing to look at. Like, some companies churn in a lot of sales, like sales, buys and sells, just sales in general. So those are things to look at. And as you go and research, the thing is, there's a lot of information on the internet. If you don't understand something, the good thing is now you have AI tools like ChatGPT. You can ask directly the question, what does this mean? What does, how Kevin was talking about the stop buy and stop limit. You can type in those questions and just because with those things, when you find the answers yourself, you retain it more because you're learning and you're retaining it as opposed to someone telling you. So, in as much as there's information that we're telling you about these things, make sure you do your research yourself. And those key indicators that we talked about, the trend, like Kevin showed you, draw a line, the 5 year, 10-year trend, the market cap, the average volume of sales. These are the type of pieces of information that you need to take a look at for every stock that you research on.
Exactly. 100%. Couldn't have said it better than myself. Yeah, so we have Lockheed Martin here. And again, look at this. Definitely went bullish in 2024. And so the other one was 2024 as well, or 2023. I'm trying to remember. But what I'm just trying to say is if you notice, they kind of go lockstep, right? So, one, these sectors, these
Mhm.
energy, defense type sectors, they kind of all kind of go in tandem. So 2024 kind of went up, but then this one does. It peaked at 2024. So you know what? I correct myself. It's kind of bearish. This is getting really quite bearish, but overall, let's see, it's 370, 480. This is not bad because at least you're not buying it at such a high peak. It's a bit
Hmm.
bearish.
Hmm.
I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm not an expert, but what I'm just saying is take advantage of these things. Look at these things, do your own research, and don't be on the sidelines. Just if you don't have a Wealthsimple account, open it up, set it up, and don't be afraid of it. Like I said, you do limit buys. If you're really into trading, there's certain patterns that you can look for too. I tried doing it, but I just can't be bothered. It's a lot of work, but you can look at certain patterns, and those patterns can dictate what's going to be happening in X number of months and stuff. But yeah, so that's what we just wanted to kind of show you, So I think I might look at some Raytheon and some Lockheed Martin. I think the last one I had on my list was Plantier. So just get the signal for that one. And Jai, do you have any of these stocks currently already?
No. Yes. Well, no. Currently, no. I had them. I sold them.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for the dip. When again, that's another term. When people say they're waiting for the dip, they're waiting for that bearish thing that Kevin was talking about, waiting for the stocks to go down because they do go. They fluctuate. It's up and down. It's up and down. And a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
when They always give you. There's some stocks that you know what they might not necessarily come down. You just have to buy when it's going up, but that's a risky buy, as people would say. But it's usually better to buy when most of these stocks dip. Again, that's why you have to look at the trend. So,
Hmm.
for instance, a stock like Palantir, basically, I bought when it was really cheap, so quote unquote. But I also bought when it,
So you bought it less than $10,
and I bought it
or not that cheap?
$19, $19.
Okay. Okay.
But there was a
Nice.
time
Nice.
it went up to, I believe it was 90 something dollars, and then it came down to about 75. So that's what you would qualify as a dip. So I bought when it went
Hmm.
down to 75 again, and then it went all the way because when it gets to a certain point, it will always come down, but then it'll go back up again to
Hmm.
that price. Typically, that's a trend, especially for stocks that have a huge market cap. So you buy when it goes
Yeah.
down, and then when it goes back up, it's up to you. You could sell or you can keep it because Palantir has gone up to like I think it's 140 the last time I checked, 130 something last time I checked. So, but I didn't wait. If I wanted to wait, I could have just waited, but I sold when it was 112, 113. So I'm waiting.
Hmm.
Why I say I'm waiting for the dip is I'm hoping that, it will, it's as high as 130 something. Maybe it might go down to 120 something again or early 130s. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just speculating. But that's why, as Kevin illustrated, you can do something like a limit buy where you can set the
Hmm.
price for a certain period of time and say, okay, when it's this price, I want to buy four or five or one or two or whatever it is, and this is the date range. So at any point in time, when if it goes to that price, it would automatically trigger a buy, and it's going to be in your portfolio. So these are ways to get
Yeah.
around these things.
And I'm just being transparent here, right? Like, I don't got a lot in my RSP. This is my retirement.
Yeah.
It's pretty much nothing, but I have some gold.
Hmm.
So overall, it's giving me a +9 or +10% return. Again, nothing crazy. Nvidia, and this is a limit buy that I did, and as you can see, it expired. I was trying to get Microsoft at a really low number,
Hmm.
and it just didn't work, right? It
Hmm.
didn't work out. So it's all good. It just expired after 90 days. But some of these, I think I did a limit buy on this one. Oh, I think I canceled that one. But one of them I did a limit buy and it hit. So it's kind of fun, like just again, try not to overthink investing.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
Obviously,
important.
if you can't put food on the table, do not invest. Put food on the table first. But if you have resources, if you have additional funds, if you have a savings, invest in it. Take some investments. Take a little bit. I think you said it before, Jai, parcel it out. So, you have your investment money, 80% of it, maybe keep in savings. Take 20%, put into these types of stocks. And then, or take 10% these types of stocks, take another 10%, put into less risky stocks, just things like that. The whole idea is that we can't be on the sidelines anymore. We need to empower ourselves. We need to build that generational wealth. This every generation fending for themselves is not sustainable.
Whoa. So again, some of these stocks are going to go bullish. So this is the time to start looking at what you.
Yeah, just wanted to kind of show you guys a bit of transparency. Again, stocks are not, you don't have to have trillions of dollars, and it's just a slow grind. Okay? But that's about it. That's all we really wanted to show you guys. This is our Nerdy Monday, and hopefully you guys found it interesting. And we will see you in the next one. Guys, please like and subscribe. Helps us, beat these algorithms and allows us to give you better content. God bless, be safe out there, and have a good one.
I guess.